For 5 years, I believed I was saving her life. I had no idea I was funding someone else's.
I gave you life, Maya. You owed me this lifestyle.
For 5 years, Maya believed she was saving her mother's life. She had no idea she was funding someone else's. It started on a Tuesday afternoon in March, 5 years earlier, when Elena sat Maya down at the kitchen table and told her, in a voice carefully arranged to sound brave, that the doctors had found something. Something serious. Something that would need constant care, constant treatment, constant money that Elena's modest pension could never cover. "I don't want to be a burden," Elena said, dabbing at eyes that Maya, in that moment, did not think to examine too closely. "You have your own life, your own plans." Maya was 24 years old. She had just been accepted into a graduate program she had spent 3 years preparing for. She had a fiancé, David, who had proposed 6 months earlier with a ring they had chosen together, modest but meaningful. She had a life that was, for the first time, entirely her own. She looked at her mother's face and made a decision that felt, at the time, like the only decision a good daughter could make. "You're not a burden," Maya said. "I'll take care of it. I'll take care of you." The graduate program was deferred again, then quietly abandoned. The engagement lasted 11 more months before David, gently and then not so gently, asked Maya where their future had gone. She could not give him an answer that made sense outside of the walls of her mother's illness, and eventually he stopped asking, and then he stopped calling. Maya took a second job, then a third. She worked mornings at a medical billing company, afternoons at a retail store, and weekends cleaning offices downtown. Work she was almost too exhausted to remember by the time each shift ended. Every payday, a portion of her earnings went directly into an account Elena had set up, one Maya never had access to herself. "For the specialists," Elena would say. "For the treatments the insurance won't cover." Maya never asked to see receipts. It did not occur to her, in those years, that a daughter should need to. She moved into a smaller apartment to save money. She stopped seeing friends, not out of choice exactly, but because there was no time left in a week that began at 5 in the morning and ended past midnight, 6 days out of 7. Her body began to show it before her mind allowed itself to notice. She lost weight she could not afford to lose. She developed a persistent cough that she treated with over-the-counter medicine because a doctor's visit cost money that belonged, in her mind, to something more important than her own health. "You look tired," her mother would say sometimes, with what appeared to be genuine concern. "I'm fine," Maya always answered. "This is for you. It's worth it." Elena's specialist appointments happened with a regularity that, looking back, Maya would later recognize as strange. Always on days when Maya herself was working, always requiring several hours, always followed by Elena returning home tired and needing quiet, needing rest, needing Maya not to ask too many questions about what exactly had been discussed. There was a room in the basement of the house Maya still paid the mortgage on. The house she had grown up in, the house Elena had insisted on keeping rather than downsizing, for stability during treatment. The basement room had a heavy door with a padlock that Elena had installed herself, early in those 5 years, explaining that the room had a mold problem too dangerous for Maya to risk exposure to, given how run down her own health had become. Maya had never questioned this. She had never had a reason to. Elena was her mother. Illness made people do strange, protective things. A locked door in a basement was such a small, unremarkable detail against the enormous weight of everything else Maya was carrying that she had, for 5 years, simply never thought about it at all. The Thursday everything changed began like any other. Maya had left for her retail shift at 11, expecting to work until closing, but a scheduling mix-up sent her home 3 hours early, an unexpected gift of time that felt, at first, like nothing more than a chance to finally sleep. She let herself in through the front door, quiet out of habit rather than intention, and noticed immediately that the house did not have the particular stillness it usually had on a weekday afternoon. There was a sound coming from somewhere below her, muffled, indistinct, but unmistakably human. Laughter. Not the careful, effortful laughter Elena sometimes produced during their strained evening conversations. Real laughter. Easy laughter. The kind of laughter that came from someone completely at ease, completely unguarded, completely unaware that anyone was listening. Maya stood very still at the top of the basement stairs for a long moment, her heart doing something strange and uneven in her chest. Then she went down. The basement door was closed, but not fully. A gap of perhaps 3 inches, enough for warm golden light to spill out into the dim hallway. Enough for the laughter to carry clearly now. Enough for Maya to hear her mother's voice, unmistakable, saying something about a resort in a tone Maya had never once heard her use in 5 years of supposed illness. Maya pushed the door open. She did not fully understand, for the first several seconds, what she was looking at. The room was nothing like what she had imagined for 5 years. No medical equipment, no evidence of mold, nothing dangerous or clinical at all. It was warmly lit, tastefully decorated, and filled floor to ceiling with things. Designer handbags arranged carefully on open shelving, still with their authentication tags attached. A jewelry cabinet with a glass front, displaying pieces that caught the light in ways Maya's own modest earrings never had. And on the far wall, covering nearly its entire surface, a collage of photographs. Elena on a beach somewhere tropical. Elena at what looked like a vineyard. Elena laughing beside a pool with people Maya had never met. Elena standing in front of a stone building that looked, unmistakably, like it belonged somewhere in Europe. Elena was sitting in the middle of it all, on a plush chair, a laptop open on her knees, a video call still connected showing the frozen, smiling face of a woman Maya didn't recognize. She looked up. She saw Maya standing in the doorway. For a moment, neither of them said anything at all. "You're home early," Elena said. It was, Maya would think later, the strangest possible thing to say in that moment. "I can explain. This isn't what it looks like." Just a simple observation about scheduling, delivered in the same calm tone Elena might have used to comment on the weather. Maya said nothing. She could not, in that first minute, make her voice work at all. She stood in the doorway looking at the room. Really looking now, taking in details she had missed in the initial shock. A shoe rack with at least a dozen pairs, several still in their original boxes. A vanity with cosmetics arranged more carefully than anything in the rest of the house. A small refrigerator in the corner, the kind used to keep wine at the correct temperature. "Close the laptop, please," Elena said to whoever was still on the video call, her voice mild, unbothered. "I'll call you back." The screen went dark. Elena closed the laptop fully and set it aside, and only then did she look up at Maya with an expression that was not guilt, not fear, not even particularly surprise. It was closer to mild inconvenience, the expression of someone whose private moment had been interrupted before they were ready to end it. "What is this?" Maya finally managed to ask. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted it to. "It's my room," Elena said. Maya looked around again, at the photographs on the wall, at the designer bags, at the sheer accumulated weight of things that must have cost more than Maya had earned across several months of triple shifts. "I thought this room had mold. I thought it was dangerous." "It was easier that way," Elena said, without a trace of apology in her tone. "Easier than what?" "Easier than you asking questions." Maya felt something in her chest give way slightly, like a support beam beginning to buckle under weight it had held for far too long. "The specialists," she said slowly, piecing it together even as she said it aloud, needing to hear the shape of it in her own voice to believe it was real. "The treatments. The account I've been putting money into for 5 years. "Yes," Elena said simply. "There was never anything wrong with you." It was not quite a question. Elena did not treat it as one. "There's nothing wrong with me that a comfortable life doesn't fix," she said. Maya walked further into the room, almost without meaning to, her hand reaching out to touch one of the photographs on the wall. Elena, radiant, standing on a beach that must have cost more for 1 week than Maya's entire annual rent. "When was this?" Maya asked, her finger resting against the glossy print. 2 years ago. You were working the office cleaning shift that month, I remember. Very tired. You barely noticed I was gone for 10 days. The casualness of it, the way Elena recited this detail as though it were an amusing footnote rather than a devastating admission, was somehow worse than anything Maya had imagined during the walk from the doorway to where she now stood. 10 days, Maya repeated. I thought you were at a clinic. I called the number you gave me for the clinic, and it went to voicemail for over a week, and you told me they were doing an intensive program, no phones allowed. I remember, Elena said. You were very understanding about it. Something in Maya went very cold and very still. Say it, she said. Whatever you're going to say to explain this. Say it now, because I need to hear you actually say it before I decide what I'm going to do. Elena studied her daughter for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice held no defensiveness at all, only a kind of flat, settled certainty, the voice of someone who had rehearsed this conversation many times in her own mind and had never doubted, even once, that she was in the right. "I gave you life, Maya," she said. "You owed me this lifestyle." The words landed in the room and seemed to hang there, undisturbed, as though Elena had said something entirely reasonable rather than something that dismantled 5 years of Maya's life in a single sentence. "That's not how it works," Maya said, though her voice shook now, the coldness cracking into something rawer. "Giving birth to me doesn't mean I owe you my entire life afterward. Doesn't it?" Elena asked. She did not raise her voice. She did not seem angry at being questioned. She simply seemed, if anything, mildly curious that Maya would think otherwise. "I fed you. I clothed you. I raised you alone after your father left, with nothing, working 2 jobs myself when you were small. You think that debt just disappears once you're grown? You think I did all of that and expected nothing back? I already paid you back," Maya said. 5 years of it. My degree. My engagement. My health. What more could you possibly think you're still owed?" Elena's expression did not change. "As much as I decide I need," she said. "That's what mothers are owed, Maya. You'll understand that better when you have children of your own, if you ever get around to it now, at this age, with nothing left." Maya stood very still in the middle of the room that her exhaustion had paid for, surrounded by evidence of a life stolen so completely that she had not even known to look for it, and felt something inside her finally, quietly, finish breaking in a way that did not hurt the way she expected it to. It felt, instead, like clarity. "You never had cancer," she said, needing to say the plain fact out loud one final time. "No. You let me give up graduate school for a lie." "You gave it up for me," Elena corrected. "The reason doesn't change what you chose to do. You let David leave because I couldn't explain where all my time and money were going." "David wasn't right for you," Elena said, with the first flicker of something that might have been genuine opinion rather than manipulation. "I was doing you a favor there, if you want the truth." Maya almost laughed, a short, disbelieving sound with no humor in it at all. "You don't get to decide that was a favor," she said. "You don't get to decide any of this was a favor." Elena stood up from her chair for the first time since Maya had entered the room, smoothing down the front of an expensive silk blouse Maya had never seen before and now understood she had, in some indirect way, paid for. "So what happens now?" Elena asked. Her tone suggested she already expected the answer to be manageable, the way every other consequence of her choices over the past 5 years had apparently been manageable, absorbed quietly by a daughter who never thought to ask the questions that would have unraveled everything sooner. Maya looked at her mother for a long moment. She thought about the 11 months of David's slowly dying patience. She thought about the graduate program she had deferred twice and then simply let expire, the acceptance letter still somewhere in a drawer she hadn't opened in years. She thought about the cough she had never gotten checked, the weight she had lost, the friends whose names she could barely remember anymore because there had been no time for 5 straight years, all of it funneled into an account that had bought her mother handbags and beach vacations and a hidden life she had built entirely on the foundation of her daughter's exhaustion. "I'm going to pack a bag," Maya said quietly, "and then I'm going to leave." Elena did not follow her upstairs. Maya heard the basement door close behind her as she climbed the stairs, and then, faintly, the sound of Elena's voice, muffled, already on the phone again, already resuming whatever conversation had been interrupted, as though nothing that had just happened between them carried enough weight to interrupt her afternoon further. Maya walked into her childhood bedroom, the one she had kept a few belongings in for the rare nights she stayed over, and pulled a single suitcase down from the top of the closet. She did not cry while she packed. She had expected to, had braced for it on the stairs, certain that the moment she was alone the full weight of it would arrive and flatten her. But what came instead was something quieter and stranger, a kind of methodical calm, the same calm she used when triaging her exhausted schedule between 3 jobs, except now, for the first time in 5 years, she was organizing something for herself. She packed only what was truly hers. Some clothes, a few books, the framed photograph of her father, the one Elena had always claimed made her too sad to look at and had banished to a drawer years ago. Maya took that too. She did not take anything that Elena had bought her during the 5 years of the lie. Not the winter coat, not the shoes, not the small gold necklace Elena had given her for her birthday 2 years earlier, purchased, Maya now understood, with money that should never have left her own account in the first place. She found Elena in the kitchen when she came back downstairs, suitcase in hand. Her mother was making tea, unhurried, as though the day had simply continued along its ordinary path. "You're really doing this," Elena said. It was not quite a question. "Yes. Where will you even go? You gave up your apartment for something bigger, remember, when you thought I'd need to move in eventually for the treatments." Maya had, in fact, forgotten that detail until Elena said it. One more small sacrifice buried under so many larger ones that it had lost its individual shape. "I don't know yet," Maya said honestly. "But I'll figure it out. I've been figuring out how to survive difficult things for 5 years. I'm good at it now, actually. I have you to thank for the practice." If the words landed as the quiet cut Maya intended them to be, Elena did not show it. "You'll come back," Elena said instead, with the particular confidence of someone who had never once, in her daughter's entire life, been proven wrong about this specific kind of certainty. "You always come back. You love me too much to actually leave." Maya paused at the front door, her hand resting on the handle, and turned to look at her mother one final time. Really looked at her, the way she hadn't allowed herself to in years, too exhausted and too dutiful to examine too closely the person she had given everything to. "I do love you," Maya said. "That was never the problem. The problem was that you needed me to prove it by disappearing into nothing, so you could have everything. And I'm done proving it that way." She opened the door. "Goodbye, Mom." She did not wait to see whether Elena responded. The weeks that followed were harder than Maya expected, in ways that had nothing to do with money or logistics, and everything to do with the strange, disorienting grief of losing someone who was still, technically, alive and well, and only a phone call away. She stayed with a former co-worker for the first 2 weeks, sleeping on a pull-out sofa that felt, somehow, more genuinely restful than any night she had spent in the house that had swallowed 5 years of her life. She found a small apartment after that, nothing special, barely furnished, but entirely, completely her own in a way nothing had been for half a decade. She reactivated her graduate school application. It had lapsed, but the program, understanding her circumstances in the broad strokes she was willing to share, allowed her to reapply for the following intake. She would start 18 months later than originally planned. She told herself on the difficult nights that 18 months was a small price compared to what she had already paid. She did not reach out to David. She thought about it sometimes, wondered whether an explanation, however late, might mean something to him. But she understood, with the same clarity that had arrived in that basement room, that some doors, once closed by circumstance and silence, were not meant to be reopened simply because the silence finally made sense. Elena called 4 times in the first month. Maya let each call go to voicemail. She listened to none of them. By the 3rd month, the calls slowed to once every few weeks. Maya did not know, and did not ask, whether this was because Elena had accepted the distance, or because Elena had simply found other sources for whatever she had been extracting from her daughter for 5 years. She suspected it did not matter which explanation was true. The outcome, for Maya, was the same either way. She began seeing a therapist, something she had never had the time or money to consider during the 5 years she believed every spare resource belonged to her mother's survival. In one of their early sessions, the therapist asked her a question that stayed with Maya long after the appointment ended. "Do you think you'll ever go back?" Maya thought about it for a long time before answering. "I don't think I'm the same person who could go back," she said finally. "That version of me believed love meant disappearing, so someone else could be comfortable. I don't believe that anymore. And I don't think there's a version of my mother waiting on the other side of that door who wants the version of me that doesn't believe it. She wants the one who did." A year later, Maya graduated. She sat in the audience seats before the ceremony began, scanning the crowd out of habit rather than expectation, and felt something settle quietly in her chest when she confirmed, as she had known she would, that her mother was not there. She had invited her, in the end, a small, uncertain gesture she was not entirely sure she meant as an olive branch or as a final test. Elena had responded with a single message. "I hope it goes well for you. I'm sure it will." No promise to attend. No question about the time or location. Just a polite, distant well-wish from someone who had never quite understood that showing up, consistently and without condition, was the actual currency of the debt she claimed to be owed. Maya walked across that stage without her mother watching, and found, to her own quiet surprise, that she did not need her to be. If there is one thing this story wants you to sit with, it is this. A mother giving you life does not obligate you to give her the rest of yours. Love that flows only in one direction, that demands sacrifice without ever offering it in return, is not love. It is a debt collected under a gentler name. You are allowed to walk away from people who taught you that your worth was measured only by what you were willing to give up for them. That is not cruelty. It is often the very first act of learning to survive as yourself, rather than as someone else's unpaid answer to their own unmet needs. So we leave you with the question this story has carried from the very beginning. When does a mother's gift of life become a debt that can never be paid? Is walking away an act of cruelty, or the first act of survival? Tell us what you believe in the comments below. If this story touched something in you, stay with us. There are more waiting to be told.